The Mars Volta. I listened to Deloused in the Comatorium and thought that album was awesome. With tracks like Intertiatic ESP, Drunk Ship of Lanterns, Ariatarka, and so on. Tracks that were chilled out, psychedelic, or just plain awesome. When I first listened to Francis the Mute back in 2008, which was 3 years after the album was released, I was kinda interested more in the backstory of the album's conception than the music itself. The story goes that Jeremy Ward, the sound technician for Volta, was repossessing a car when one day he stumbled across a diary in the backseat of the car while he was repossessing it. It told the story of a man trying to find his biological parents. With each person the man talked to written down, names and people that he was pointed to next. Jeremy felt a connection to this man, as he had been adopted as well, and each of the names were basis for the track's names on the album, like Francis, Miranda, Cassandra, and so on. I thought this was so cool that something as seemingly random as a diary of another man's quest to find his biological parents could give this much amount of material. Anyways, the story of the album itself is pretty damn intricate. Let's dive into Francis the Mute. Cygnus, Vismin Cygnus. Vismin Cygnus opens up with a nice acoustic riff from Omar Rodriguez, and Cedric Zavala starts crooning until it picks up and goes into a fast-paced assault of guitar and drums and screeching by Cedric, which is awesome. Cedric opens the next verse singing in Spanish, which is something I've always loved about the Mars Volta. Their incorporation of Spanish into their songs, and he sings about an abortion that survived, a product of a lineage of bastard mastication, and his quest to find more about his lineage. Being born from a rape by Francis, he harbors some resentment of being born male, and being involuntarily aligned with the male aggression and dominance associated with the race. Trying to make yourself the alpha or make yourself the strongest and get whatever by any means necessary. Also, he's HIV positive, so he's basically a walking plague, and he doesn't really care. Having sex with a client of his multiple times without protection, thus spreading his death and decay to others. The instrumentation and fast-paced nature of the beginning section of the song gives this manic energy of searching, moving, and trying to find something. Near the middle of the song, it starts to go into an instrumental psychedelic break that gives way to Omar's improvisations and the keys, setting off a nice background amidst all the chaos from Omar's guitar. I guess setting the mood for Vismin Cygnus' sexcapades. Moving towards the end, Cedric sings about counting the days to find what was left behind, wrapped it in a blanket on the lakes of blood. Damn. Creeping towards the end, we get a nice outro of instrumentation, with the drums being beat to hell by John Theodore, and Cedric Zavala's high-pitched vocals crooning and harmonizing with every guitar progression and drum hit, texturing the song in a way that reminds me of Pink Floyd or even some Ministry or Led Zeppelin. A damn good track. Leading into The Widow. Opening with what sounds like a description being read by the widow, describing what Vismin Cygnus looks like, as well as his sickness being so pronounced and obvious, but she or he has been racked by the sudden death of their significant other, that they don't care. They need care and affection, and also seemingly becoming addicted to the company and love of him. He or she becomes convinced that rather than feeling empty and alone, they'd rather feel sad and sorry for Cygnus, and willingly infect themselves with Cygnus' disease, waiting to be reunited with their past loved one in the afterlife. Strong-ass story and concept, combined with the nice instrumentation from Omar, John Theodore, the keys moving and grooving at certain parts from Isaiah Owens, the somber, almost depressing feeling the song has throughout with the acoustic guitars and electric guitars mixing, and the ending just gives that feeling of the widow becoming sick to the point of dying a slow death, living through those painful nights from the sickness until finally he or she is released. Strong song, great story, and it continues the saga of Vismin Cygnus, going into Elvia Elviakes. Getting kicked off with a sultry guitar lick from Omar, the story of Elvia is a story of grief, and her not helping her own sister from being raped, instead running away from the crime, being noticed by other witnesses near the scene, named the Owls, who blackmailed her and silenced her from talking about the situation. Cygnus finds her through his tracking, and she tells him a brief summary of the story, basically trying to cover the fact that she witnessed the rape happen. She tells him that she found his mother's torn dress and some blood, but nothing more. Cygnus catches on through her subtle hints in her voice and omissions that she knows more than she's letting on, and tells her to watch herself as she might be targeted by people who would like to kill her due to her being at the scene of the crime. He leaves to sleep, and while he's gone, Elvia gets raped as well as murdered. Cygnus is destroyed by his aunt's death, and he vows to get revenge on whoever did this. But as a consequence, he starts to lose his grasp on reality a little bit due to the death of his aunt at the hands of maybe the same people who raped his mother. Or his sickness, we don't know, but we do know that he has a lot of shit on his mind, and it's starting to make him lose it. The instrumentation is so sick in this song, Having a Spanish flair with the acoustic guitar-led hooks, the nice electric guitar work, the vocals singing in mostly Spanish, relaying Cygnus's warnings to Elvia that they want to kill her and watch out, and the drumming on this track is so sick. John Theodore really made this track's energy shine. Going towards the end, and hell, throughout this entire track, he's able to switch between manic, frantic drum patterns to the slinky, sexy-sounding samba shuffling found usually in Spanish music. And Cedric Zavala's vocals on this are really strong. His yas are high energy and soars into the heavens, his mellow delivery during the hooks, and his texturing of the track's backgrounds with the airy and vibrant vocal sound effects he does during the hooks as well is great. The lyrics are really well written, and it fits the narrative throughout the whole song, in English and in Spanish, if you know any. Really great song. We get to see Cygnus's journey continue, see him meet his aunt and discuss and find out more about what happened to his mother, and see him gradually lose his sanity. Damn. Well, the journey continues in Miranda, that ghost just isn't holy anymore. It's weird because I have a cousin named Miranda, and she got me into Daft Punk, Weezer, Nirvana, and many other bands. So, yeah, anyways. Miranda is the mother of Francis and Elvia, basically Cygnus's grandmother. Starting in what sounds like a tropical location, like maybe where there's a lot of trees or wildlife nearby like Brazil or Puerto Rico, Cygnus finds her through clues and locations said to him by his aunt Elvia. She gives him a very intense conversation about how the men who murdered not only his mother but now his aunt have caused her nothing but pain and misery. And Cygnus takes it out on himself with his drug abuse. Miranda had tried in the past to tell other people about the crimes committed against her daughter, but many of the people she told ignored her or refused to listen, due to the power the men had that were behind the crime, which led me to believe that these guys were either gang members or maybe even some mobsters or something. I mean, shit, man, some real powerful people that have that kind of power over other people usually do so because they're well known or feared, like the cartels in Mexico near where I live. But yeah, this mostly mellow track is the story of a mother's pain, a son's pain, and the feeling of horror when no one wants to help for fear of retaliation from the powerful men. Sucks, man. The song's manic intro grows from noise that gets more and more louder until it culminates into a trumpet being played by none other than my boy Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Hold on, my boy Flea is back on his trumpet thing on this track? Now that alone is sick. But add in the nice, vibrant, and trippy guitar work from Omar that reminds me again of Pink Floyd around the Wall era. And Cedric singing real mellow, like he's almost pleading on this track, and the overall morose and bleak feel of the song and mood, and you got what is my personal favorite track on the entire album. The story, the lyrics, the music, the instrumentation, it all works wonderfully on here. And Flea's trumpet work, while minimal and spaced out, is a welcome addition that adds some nice, sad texturing to the overall feel of the track. He never goes all over the place. He keeps one mood throughout the entire song, and it adds real nice to the overall story and mood of the track. Great track. And the track ends with a kind of continuation of the ending riff from Elvia, moving right into the final track, which is a whopping 32 minutes. So I really don't know who Cassandra Gemini could possibly be, but judging from the name Gemini and the association with the figure from astrology, I'm guessing it could be a sister or brother to Cygnus, or possibly another side that may have been awakened due to all the traumatic shit he's been dealing with up until now. The journey to find who he really is, the death of his aunt, the pain that his grandmother is feeling, him coping with drugs. His mind must be at a very vulnerable and weakened state that maybe he needed a strong personality or something to come and protect him. I don't know, that's just what I'm getting from it. Anyways, Cygnus becoming one of the others, like the opening lyrics suggest, either has him becoming or is in the process of being a monster, like those who took his mother and aunt away. And he steadily ventures forward to find them, to kill every last one. Shit, this music in the story is getting good. Like Dead Man's Shoes, where he avenged his brother's death, or Death Sentence, where Kevin Bacon avenges his son's death. The story then goes back to the night that Francis was raped, with Elvia watching, crying and running, with lyrics about multiple suns and crucified fires set on homes of petrified people. That lyric leads me to believe that the members of the church probably committed the crime against his mother, and later killed his aunt. I mean, think about it. The higher members of church would be able to have at least some sort of power over people who preach and practice their faith. I mean, shit, it all starts to make sense now. The owls were watching, but they didn't care. They were feeding on all the carnage. Those were the members that were waiting their turn, acting as watch. They saw Elvia out of the corner of their eye. She ran, and they knew right then and there that she was to be silenced from this disgusting act, which was where Vismund Cygnus was born, just like the lyrics said before 25 Wives in the Lake Tonight plainly states. Later on, Vismund Cygnus comes to, I guess, where they meet up. the church, and soon there'll be no gauze inside the confessional. He's inside their home, where they wait only rows of crows, defrocking at every breath, the removal of rights to exercise power in their ministry. They will not have power anymore. Heaven's just a scab away. I'd like to see you after just one taste. He's ready to strike. Just a stab will send them away, and he'd like to do it again after just the initial stab. Sink your teeth into the flesh of midnight, night forevermore. No more light, only darkness for them, as well as Vismund. Let them see it has begun, the others I've become. He has done it. He avenged his mother and aunt, but in the process, became the monsters he hated up until that moment. All my life, I've been sowing the wounds. He's been waiting, but the seeds sprout a lacrimal cloud, but finally his vengeance has bloomed, but it's brought him nothing but sadness again. He's lost himself completely to his vengeance. Definitely the most psychedelic and trippy track off the entire album, and rightfully so, since this track is over 30 minutes long. Opening with a hard rock guitar flavor that immediately moves into a sick and vibey rock, and is that a fucking flute? Dude, that flute sounds so sick against this collage of horns and guitar riffs. The track moves into a set feeling of nice sounding riffs, crazy horns, and drums that kick so much ass. Cedric singing about no light being in the darkest of your reaches. I mean, there's really no way to explain the beginning section of this song. You really just need to listen to it. It's one of the most awesomely tight and musically diverse pieces of music that has been released this generation. Varied sections of hard rock, soft rock, psychedelia. Man, the journey that this song takes you into from the moment you press play on this song is just Jesus. Around the 10-minute mark, the song goes into a psychedelic mood reminiscent of Pink Floyd's Uma Guma album, or even A Saucer Full of Secrets, before kicking back into Cedric building up the mood with the guitars, drums, and keys, with him singing about 25 wives in the lake tonight, and how he's going into the marble shrine to fuck some shit up. The music builds and builds until about the 21-minute mark, where it starts to slow down again with the drums and keys carrying the atmosphere, with the guitar blaring some nice sparse notes around the middle of the section, filling in the space left out from the drums and keys. The guitar goes into a nice psychedelic riff with the drums and bass helping out in the background that sounds so pleasing to the ears. Omar and company just vibe out completely, and at the 25-minute mark there's this noise that comes out of nowhere that sounds almost exactly like the one from Echoes by Pink Floyd. You know what I'm talking about, that eerie screaming noise. Really, I can't do this track justice. Just go listen to it for yourself. It's definitely a strong, hell, I'd say it's one of the strongest ending tracks to an album I've ever heard. Alright, what do I think of the Mars Volta's album Francis the Mute? 10 out of 10. What was that? Oh, you didn't hear me the first time. Alright, well let me just 10 out of 10. The story of Vismund's sickness is one that captured me entirely and made me wonder exactly where the story was heading. The concept's idea and where it even originated from alone got me interested from the get-go. Finding a random person's diary and entries pointing to where his real parents were, as well as sound technician Jeremy Ward having a similar life with him being adopted, and the instrumentation on here, man. Jesus Christ. You have hard rock, soft rock, flamenco and Spanish influenced instrumentation and lyrics, psychedelia and avant-garde mashups, Cedric Zavala's crooning and screaming vocalizations, his textured noise in the backgrounds, Omar Rodriguez's guitar work, John Theodore's manic and subdued playing of the drums, the keyboard work from Isaiah Owens adding layers of atmosphere and moods as well as just sounding amazing. Juan Alderete de la Peña on bass being so fucking groovy underneath the manic and frantic pace of the drums and guitar. His bass work, while kinda buried beneath the power of Cedric's voice and drums and guitars, still has a sick and funky groove that just powers its way through each and every track. Marcel Lopez as well with percussions and working the secondary keys, and the guest musicians on here, man. Flea adding some flair to songs like The Widow and Miranda, John Frusciante appearing on the first 2 guitar solos for Elvia, Larry Harlow adding that sick-ass clavinet on Cassandra Gemini, sorry I said it was a flute, and the many others just add more to the tracks that they were featured in. A sick-ass album that if you haven't listened to, I suggest you do, seriously. If you're into old school bands that love to have conceptual albums or that just like to dabble and beat down some psychedelic and avant-garde music, then these guys are right up your alley. Hey, I get it, this music won't be for everyone, and Cedric's vocal delivery might get on your nerves a bit or make you hate his vocal style. Hell, when I first heard this album, I hated how he opened up and sang on The Widow for the first time. And maybe the constant time signature switches and moods being all over the place really isn't your speed, or maybe you just don't like the Mars Volta. Yeah, but give this album a listen at least. It's really good. Well, not just good, it's great. This album has everything you could ever want out of a 1 hour long concept album, and it's definitely one of my all-time favorite albums ever. So what should I review next? Leave a comment, like, favorite, share if you feel so inclined to do so. And as always, peace.